Big blessings. This little video is going to examine the upcoming lunar cycle, which begins with August 27th, 2022's new moon. I'm Michael at One Sky. I practice constellational astrology, aka true Sidereal Astrology. So the sizes of the signs that we'll see in my work are uneven, and we're using the constellations themselves in the very old tradition of astronomy and astrology as twin disciplines. But back to the future, our next new moon is August 27th, and it's happening in the stars of constellation Leo. It's going to kick off a lunation, which peaks with an exciting looking full moon across the sky in Aquarius. I usually show a nice 3D like a planetarium or a stellarium sort of view, but I'm on my laptop. I'm in the process of moving, and I'm in between houses, and I'm on my laptop, and the integrated graphics in this thing, they don't play very nicely with the planetarium. So I can't do that this month. So we're gonna look at it in 2D. So the sun and moon are together with Venus in Leo, and Mercury's out ahead of the pack in Virgo. Looking back, Mars has made his way well into Taurus, and just to stop there and take note, all 5 personal planets have changed signs, moved on to the next sign since last month. I don't want to say too much about that. It's a period of change, personal change. Uranus and the North Node are inhabiting Aries. We have Eris, Chiron, Jupiter, and ruler Neptune, actually ancient ruler Jupiter and modern ruler Neptune of Pisces, inhabiting those stars. We have Saturn finishing up late Capricorn, moving retrograde though back into Capricorn, and Pluto finishing up Sagittarius, also retrograde. And opposite this Aries North Node sits Libra South Node, and that creates that Aries Libra axis this month, that all important lunar nodal axis. So when we look at the new moon, the first thing that I want to say is that the intention of the new moon, the sort of expression of what wants to happen, if you will, is it's a time of low energy. It's a time to wait, to watch, to strategize, to rest, to set intentions, and to plant seeds, to plant those seeds that are going to grow into whatever you intend for the month. So, understanding the alchemy here of Leo, for example, where this new moon is, and Aquarius, where the full moon will be, just that is going to be a big help to anyone who's trying to organize their life to get aligned with the flow of the heavens. We're going to go deeper than just the Leo Aquarius axis in this video. We're going to look at the 4 major points, the waxing quarter, the full moon, the waning quarter, and we'll look at the next new moon as well to sort of peek at what we're heading towards, what we're leading into. So I want to start just looking at this new moon with the energies of Leo. We have Sun, Moon, and Venus here, and Leo is resonant with the Sun. Leo is resonant with creative power. And Leo's special medicine is to bring into being what did not exist before. This is creativity. This is the artist, the creative, the progenerator. So Leo also has a very, very marked penchant for self-exploration. It just loves to discover itself by exploring itself, finding out what are its limits, what it likes, what it doesn't like, and all by experience. Leo's following on Cancer, which we talked about last month, is correlate to the development of ego. And ego is simply Latin for self. So coming out of that gate of Cancer's development of the boundaries and the limits and the qualities and characteristics of our self, our ego, Leo's where we start to really explore and get into the richness of that, discover what we like to do when we play, when we have fun, when we follow our bliss. These are Leo's big buzzwords. But I think creative self-actualization, if I had to narrow Leo down to one set or one quick idea that summed up all the other ideas about it, it would be creative self-actualization. I want to thank Jeffrey Wolf Green for that one. And while I'm shouting people out, I was just on a really cool podcast called Cosmic Wizard, and Rio Larmand, a Canadian astrologer in this same tradition, and we talked about oppositions and the axis that are created by the zodiac. And we started out with the Leo-Aquarius opposition, because that's where this month's new moon and full moon axis is. So check that out. I'm going to leave a link to that podcast in the description. Rio and I are going to do a series of 6 explorations of the oppositions. And we're going to look at all the organic irregularities. So we talk about Leo Capricorn and Leo Pisces too. It's a great video, and there's going to be more. So check that out. Leo energy has really been known since very ancient times to be what it is. These stars are extra famous, and their qualities are no real mystery to us. Leo has a penchant for the grandiose, the dramatic. It seeks attention and recognition. It gambles and takes risks. And it gets involved. It gets in there. It gets inside and learns about things by experience. It seeks self-purpose. It's seeking power too. Leo seeks power. And you might say, well, you know, I know a lot of artists and creative people, and they're not really power hungry, but I would suggest that there is tremendous power in art. Shakespeare noted the pen is mightier than the sword, and these ideas aren't new. I'm not saying that artists seek power, but I'm saying there's power in art. So an artist is going to have to learn how to handle that power and the responsibilities that come with it. Like I was saying, Leo plays. Leo follows bliss as a guide, and it correlates with our pleasure principle. So this is really where we find the urges from the level of our inner child, Leo. Distorted Leo gets very lost in itself. It has a tendency to be famously narcissistic. And actualized or undistorted Leo has a really easy time with attention. It loves the spotlight. It knows what to do with incredible attention and power. Leo mature and actualized Leo really holds power well. And this is in order to manifest the leadership principle. Leo's very generous, and it's generous, and it creates. So it gives rise to novelty. Right? Things that didn't exist before. This is the creative, the artist quality of Leo, but it gives rise to novelty for the benefit of others. And this is a huge ingredient in Leo's leadership strategy, leadership style, and just the expression of the energy of these stars. So acting generously for the benefit of others is something that Leo shares with its opposite, with humanitarian Aquarius. So with this in mind as the core energies of the seed of this cycle, let's look at some of the other factors in this August new moon. We have a new moon in square to Mars in Taurus. And this square is very close to the order of 1 arc minute. So what is a Mars square to a new moon going to correlate with? Well, this is really traditionally tense energy. It's very active energy, and it's very sexual energy. So there's going to be the energy of heat here. And this is the kind of energy that can have an itchy feeling, like we've got to channel it. We've got to do something with it. To manage this energy, or it could be uncomfortable. It could really be something that we might feel like we just have to burn up with activity. That's going to be a good strategy to approach any kind of discomfort we experience like that. Physical activity, sex, work, anything that's productive, that you can just channel your energies into, anything that's creative. So with Leo and Taurus emphasized here, and with Mars and the Sun and Moon, that's why I selected physical activity, work, productivity oriented, play or productivity oriented, anything that channels these discomforts into this Leo quality of creating something that didn't exist before. I know it's not inspiring, right? The energy of hot, itchy, tense, just uncomfortable energies, ill at ease. But it's what we have to do sometimes. It's just one of those neat things about being alive is we get handed these sort of lemons and we learn to make lemonade. Actually, we can accomplish really great things with this energy. The square is incredibly powerful. There's so much energy in the square to harness. We can accomplish great things, but the feeling can be of not wanting to work, not wanting to commit, because, I feel inwardly uncomfortable. Now, how much more will I feel uncomfortable if I start doing some work, right? But no, that's exactly what is really good to do with these energies, work. We have to burn it up constructively. We have to counteract the destructive nature of that heat. And this Mars to new moon square is a really classic signature of like power moves and hot-headed men, by and large, running their mouths, asserting their power, really sort of making ego moves, or I should say making power moves, which cause ego conflicts. That's what's happening here. High tendency with this signature, and that is the square, very close square to Mars. To see this, because with Mars you have the heat of fire, and with Leo and the Sun you have the heat of fire, and even the cooling qualities of the Moon in this instance are still touched by the fires of Leo. So everything here is hot. The square makes it sticky, and when you get Mars and Sun square to each other, you can look this up. It's a real classic. You just have either men in power who feel empowered to kind of like, jostle and make power moves and start trampling on some people, hurting some feelings, causing ego dramas, causing ego struggles, conflicts. It's a conflict signature. And if we haven't channeled all this aggressive energy in a good way, we can respond to provocation like that, even if we aren't inspired to hand that out to someone else. We can respond to provocation like that with really regrettable language, really, terrible actions, we could lose our cool because, we haven't processed this energy. So that's what's being asked for here, very specifically. This is a classic signature of undergoing challenges from rivals, undergoing tests from competitors, and having your character tested. That's a real classic. Again, with the Mars square. And the transiting sun and moon represent the collective human experience. Okay, so the classic wisdom on this one is to kind of keep your cards closed and take a defensive position, right? Think and act defensively as if you were aware that everyone you met was dealing with the same sort of sticky, uncomfortable, itchy, hot energy. And elsewhere in this chart for the new moon, we have this signature Venus, Saturn, and Uranus. So we have Venus in early Leo opposing Saturn in late Capricorn. And this is T-squared by Aquarius in Aries. So Venus and Saturn can get along better than most planets can get along with Saturn. So when I see this opposition, I see the main tension just in the opposition. I see the main tension as being between the energies of Leo and the energies of Capricorn, which are naturally in conjunct to each other and pretty remarkably incompatible from a certain point of view. And the energies are asking here for playful Leo to develop maturity and patience, and grown-up serious Capricorn to develop a sense of experimentation and flow, play, bliss. That's what late Capricorn needs, and that's what Saturn, here in the fullness of his own stars, is really going to benefit from if we can bring this alchemy. And no one better to bring that message to grumpy old Saturn than Venus. So I think this alchemy really could work out well if we understand that it's asking for an alchemy between the energies of maturity, patience, discipline, grown-up, serious things, and play, bliss, fun, joy, all of these explorations. So how we do that, that might look a little tricky, but it's going to yield a lot of power when we strike that balance, when we reconcile that paradox. And this brings up again that recent Cosmic Wizard podcast. We talked about the similarities and the differences between the opposites and the alchemy of Leo's oppositions in a much more developed way on the podcast. So check that out. I'm not even going to get into all that and repeat all that because there's a link in the description. So Uranus, though, is with the North Node. So jumping back to this chart, when I talk about Venus and Saturn as being, it's a Saturn opposition, but it doesn't freak me out. It doesn't worry me. If we know how to handle it, it's not something that's going to be hard to handle. But this T-square from Uranus, we talked about this last month, and it's like an appetite for the future, for change, for what's next, for progress, right? Moving forward. And this T-square could produce some heightened anticipation or anxiety, which could relate directly to that Leo Capricorn paradox, the play seriousness paradox, and the balancing of that. And what I mean by that is when we consider how we're moving forward, what we're moving forward into, just this collective journey that we're on, at this time and at this point in history, some of the difficulties attitudinally in reconciling our experience might have to do with, Venus in early Leo relative to an appetite for the future is like a great sense of excitement and appreciation, joy, play. Oh, fun, something new. How nice. Let's Leo, let's get in there. Let's see what it's about. Let's see how we feel about it. Let's play. And then there's Saturn's approach, which is diametrically opposed. I mean, quite literally as indicated by the opposition, diametrically opposed to that approach. It's gonna withdraw, it's gonna retreat, it's gonna observe, it's gonna strategize, it's gonna take notes, it's gonna establish in its mind orders and hierarchies, structures, and it's going to start to play chess to ensure its own best positionality, future forward, because that's what Saturn in Capricorn does. So this is something that I see, and remember, this is the new moon. So this sort of alchemy, this sort of movement forward, and the need to get all our shit together to reconcile this paradox of like the broad spectrum of how we're approaching the future, with our inner child, with our inner general, or strategist. I'd say Saturn in Capricorn is more of a vizier, more of a vizier, an advisor to the king. So to move forward, north node, to move forward in our highest truth, right? North node Uranus, that's what this wants to do. We may need to balance the flow and play of Leo with the maturity and strategy of Capricorn. And we may need to reconcile Venus's gentle fondness for indulgence and enjoyment, which is something that Leo really brings out. We may need to reconcile that with Saturn's need for discipline and work and accomplishment. So these are some of the ways we can look at this alchemy. T-squares to an opposition are, always something to be considered. They're always going to have their effect. It's always going to be a little bit of a balancing act. And sometimes with Saturn oppositions, these aren't easy. So hopefully forewarned is forearmed, and we'll all skate through this. All right, and one of the last things I notice in this chart that's really standing out to me, really worth mentioning, is we've got a grand trine, Mercury, Mars, Pluto. Yeah. So Mercury out of the three is very strongly placed. It's the home star runner in his own territory of Virgo. That's going to imbue the new moon, the situation around the new moon, with a strong sense of logic, analysis, rhetoric, and organized thinking. This is Mercury in Virgo's, calling card. Now Mars in Taurus, this is Venus's territory, and Mars isn't overly empowered here. Mars isn't overly strong. It's just not resonant with his strength. Mars is brutal and crass and blunt and brash, and forward and carnal and very unsophisticated. And Venus, especially in Taurus, although nowhere is she not, very refined, very delicate, very sensible, sensitive, kind of like cultured. So this is an energy. This is not overly compatible, and Mars isn't empowered or strengthened by placement in Taurus. Pluto activity is generally expanded by Sagittarius, and it's also diversified. So the activity of Pluto is to penetrate the unknown, right? And in Sag, these are religious, philosophical, and spiritual unknowns. So a grand trine like this sets up a whole complex, right? We can't talk about it in simple ways, what might happen, but we can start to look at this whole set of relationships and create some synthesis. So let's just start to pull out some words and have some fun. A grand trine's empowering, so let's just look at that. Collectively, because these are transits, these are collective, we may be empowered. That's a grand trine. We can pull that out. We can start there. So collectively, we may be empowered in our thinking, in our understanding, in our communication. We may be empowered to stabilize. That's a Taurus activity in one place, a multiplicity, that's Sag, of mystical insights. So, yeah, that's a synthesis that could be possible. That could be part of this Mercury, Mars, Pluto complex. Or we may be powerfully motivated. That's a Pluto Mars effect. When Pluto and Mars touch, we get powerfully motivated. We could be powerfully motivated to develop an inner architecture. That's a Mercury and Virgo thing, which is expansive enough. Now here we have a Jupiter opposition, right? So we'll bring this Jupiter in Pisces opposite Mercury and Virgo in, and we'll say that a Jupiter opposition is always going to make things too big, too far, too much. So we have an expansive enough inner architecture to encompass whole-brained thinking. Now that's a Pisces Virgo axis function, whole-brained thinking. So we could develop through meditation, through yoga, through consideration, through working with binaural beats or hemisync or holosync, we can start to develop whole-brainedness. That's the real action here between Pisces and Virgo, the left brain and the right brain working as one. So we can get whole-brained thinking, which includes our vision, our dreams, our insights, our intuitive and non-rational mind. And here we can bring in that opposition to Neptune in Pisces too. And we have all of this working together with the logical, powerful rationality of Mercury's left brain, especially in Virgo. So, Jupiter opposite Mercury is new points of view too. So we could say we could take a new point of view. And this may be a new point of view relative to drives and desires, right? So we could have new ideas about our own drives and desires. And we may have new ideas about drives and desires related to the Pluto-Eris square. So, this is very interesting because we can bring the Pluto-Eris square back in, and this is ancient history, right? At this point, Pluto-Eris was a major player in the 2020 development of COVID and all of the political dichotomy and polarity that we saw, the rise of authoritarianism, and all of this attended the Pluto-Eris square. And this is now back at 1 degree 36 minutes of closeness, and that's one of the closest degrees it's going to be. It's not going to get back in orb. We can see here that we have 2019 was the first time that Pluto and Eris kind of flirted. Remember when 2019 was the year of the dumpster fire? Yeah, I don't either. And then what really happened here in December 2019. I think we may remember the emergence of COVID-19 and how that changed 2020 and 2021's landscape markedly. Here we are, late 2022, and we're done. We're done with Pluto-Eris. It is winding down, and as we make our way slowly into the future, COVID will die. This will stop. It will wind down. Even if we live with COVID-19 for the rest of our natural human existence. It will not be a pandemic, or it'll all of these plagues just they stop, they end. And 3 years is a good run. That's how long the Spanish flu ran. So, at this time, with Pluto and Eris close together again, and they only get to 1 degree 28 minutes at their very closest, and they'll do that during this cycle. So this could be on our minds. We could be looking back. We could be looking back at the last couple of years and thinking about things in new ways, right? Mars Mercury is a little bit of a daring thinker, and it's a quick thinker, and it's not afraid to develop new ideas. And with this Jupiter proximity to Mercury opposite, we could really examine the past, and there could be some valuable retrospection here because of the perspective that's afforded to us. Very unique perspective, one of several this full moon, one of several this lunar cycle, the other of which will be during the full moon. Just to wrap all of those ideas up and kind of put them in one place, just relative to the new moon. We have a Leo Aquarius axis, and this is the axis of individuality, the axis of self-discovery, and we're learning about the power of our persona. We're learning about the power of our self-actualization, our generosity, our creativity. And in Leo Aquarius, in this axis, because this lunation, this cycle, the low point is in Leo, and then as we peak, the energies, the high point is in Aquarius. So we're in a Leo Aquarius axis cycle. And in that axis, from Leo's point of view, we're developing good leadership, which starts with good self-governance, right? And Aquarius is notoriously rebellious in its stance towards leadership, which is fitting for Leo's opposite. But when we take this axis of self-discovery and we approach it from Aquarius's point of view, balanced with Leo's heart, we can recognize that other people are selves to themselves as well. People are people too. It's true. And their life experiences are as rich and vivid as yours and mine. So we develop things in this axis like good altruistic values, which is a huge Aquarius thing. Altruism, humanitarian values. You can't have it unless you combine it with Leo. So that's what we're doing this full moon. Both Leo and Aquarius want to help others. Leo does that really subjectively, while Aquarius does it really objectively. So as we look forward and look inward during the new moon, we can develop as complicated an aspiration for this cycle as we like, magically or intentionally or spiritually or, just however you live. But if we want to keep it ultimately simple, we can focus on building Leo's good leadership. And that doesn't mean telling others what to do. No, it means it starts with you. It starts with setting a good example. That's what Leo's good leadership starts with. Setting a good example, and we can focus on strengthening Aquarius's good altruistic values. In relating to our friends, that's Aquarius. Our society, that's Aquarius. Even our species, the human species. This would be the ultimate manifestation of the energies of this new moon, to develop in these good qualities. And anything more might just be bonus points, might even be extraneous. That's the real heart of Leo here when we balance it with Aquarius, knowing that that's where the full moon is going to be, and knowing that that's the axis that we're in. All right, so thanks for hanging in through all that. I want to take a look now at the waxing quarter moon. So that is the shebang bang. So the waxing quarter moon on September 3rd, 2022 will take place right near Antares in Scorpio, with the sun moving through later Leo, right on fixed star Zosma, and Venus on Regulus. So we have two royal stars activated. Isn't that intense? Kind of gives me the idea that this cycle could start to develop in dramatic ways, or that there could really be some energy here that we could put towards this development of self-discovery, good leadership, altruistic values, and the like, that we could really hit a springboard here as this lunation, as this cycle starts to emerge, because that's what's happening at the first quarter moon. The cycle is starting to emerge. The pattern, what wants to happen, right? That was the language I used at the new moon. What wants to happen. Well, as it gets to happen, as it starts to unfold and it happens, this cycle, the waxing quarter moon, the first quarter moon, is where we start to see its shape. So I think we could really start to see something pretty powerful here. And we talked a little about Mercury, opposite to Jupiter in the last segment, but this is very close. This is a very close relationship for the waxing quarter. We have it almost at half a degree, a little less. And this could increase anxiety, actually. This could increase our thinking. And Mercury is also trine to Mars, pretty closely, less than a degree. This could also quicken our thinking. So we can increase thinking, we can increase anxiety, we can quicken thinking, and it might add, this Mars-Mercury contact, it might add, even through the supportive trine, it might add to the potential anxiety that we feel at this time. With moon on Antares and Venus on Regulus, we could really add, that's going to add to the intensity of this time. And this could easily, this time, September 3rd, there could really be high anxiety and a tendency to fixate, and we could fixate on the past. And really I say that because of these squares, the squares to the malefics. We have the Pluto-Eris square. We also have a Saturn-Uranus square. We talked a little about Pluto-Eris in the last segment, but Saturn-Uranus is also sort of doing kind of the same thing. It's kind of coming back around again. It came through in 2021 with a square, and here in late 2022, it's just moving into orb. It'll get close again, and they'll sort of flirt, but then they'll leave. There won't be any contact. And in the chemistry of that kind of closeness, that sort of flirtation, we may be reminded of the difficulty of that cycle and what that represents, which is the restructuring of, let's get back to this chart. The restructuring, right? That's Uranus, restructuring, change, upheaval, very, very unexpected dynamic change, to Saturn in Capricorn, the structure of power. And Uranus is in Aries, which is really having to do with the structure of selfhood, the structure of us as individuals, as the people, relative to this sort of collective thing, this group thing, the group of us called society. So we have this weird energy delineated by the square relationship, which was really correlate to a great number of questions about how we fit in with this emerging new world, how we felt and what role we were going to play in it. So all of these themes might be coming back again with a sort of fixation on the past at this time due to the squares with the malefics. And so the things that could be on our mind or even under the surface, if we notice that we have anxiety, but we're not really sure where it comes from, well, try on for size the Great Reset, the systemic restructuring of our place in an emerging world. The financial decisions that are made by the people in power on this planet relative to the ecological disaster that is looming, obviously, over everyone's head. Look into these sort of things if you want to find a thread to follow, maybe to discover the root of your anxiety, because we're being reminded of these ghosts of the past. The wave of authoritarianism worldwide, COVID-19, the dramatic polarization of societies relative to political stances and the idea that black and brown and red and yellow and all oppressed lives matter as much as these dominator culture colonizer lives that the law just assumes matter. All of these things, all these ideas represent social change. They represent novelties that have been hard to stomach at scale. Whether you agree or disagree with these personally, it's that society has to integrate this. And these two forces, Uranus and Saturn, are really saying a lot about things at the level of society and groups, the collective of us. So combined with the Pluto-Eris square, that both of these are sort of back in orb, back in closeness, back in effect. I think that it would be very good at this time to actually take a constructive look back, take a retrospective journey, but with the idea that such time has passed that now maybe we could change and grow and develop and evolve our ideas, evolve our attitudes. And if you need some orientation to that, if you choose to take that on and you're just sitting there and you're like, wow, shit, he was right. I'm just thinking about the past. What do I do with that? Well, try to have some compassion, because we all went through this thing together. And try to lean in to joy. Try to lean into joy and humor. That's a Jupiter-Mercury thing. Joy and humor, and develop new, better attitudes about all this bullshit. Yeah, if you're bummed out about the last couple of years in the emerging new world, I would say with Moon opposite Mars, especially with Moon on Antares, we're going to have to be careful not to make regrettable interpersonal, especially sexual decisions here. The challenges of this era, they come with their medicine, and this is a chance to reconcile ourselves with the past. Like I was saying, it really is. It's a chance to make peace with the difficulty of the last few years and the trauma of what we've all been through recently. So, a lot of this might sort of attack. It can feel like it's attacking the feelings with Mars and Taurus here. It's not going to be an absolutely brutal attack. And with Moon on Antares, well, she's going to be empowered to stand her own. So the heart here can just take the adventure, take the challenge, and answer that clarion call to grow, to do better than not to do better, but to be the person we want to be. Because I guarantee you the last couple years have left us with a couple times, maybe just a handful, where we couldn't live up to being the person that we know we can be and the people that we want to be. So, rather than take the sort of low road on this one and let the moon Mars, the classic moon Mars is just like overactive sexual impulse, just that urge to merge. Rather than taking that and doing anything we regret with all this stress, look across from this point at the opportunity to have an adventure. Do something new, do something better, take the high road, take the climb, see what's up there. All right, a master of metaphor I am not, but we are done with that. We're going to move on, friends, to the full moon. Yeah, September 10th, 2022. And the intention of the full moon is a harvest point, a sort of peak of the cycle. If the new moon is the low point, then the full moon is the high point. So we have action, we have manifestation, we have dynamic tension at a peak, and the energy is at the high point of that sine wave. So if we're riding a wave and we're waiting for it to crest so we can hop in that tube and cruise, this is the time. You got to know it's coming. And the full moon is that time where if we've set an intention to develop, this is the time when the lunation will peak. So energies will be at their very most dynamic and accessible. And this full moon is really awesome because what's dynamic and accessible here in this sun-moon opposition is really, really cosmic. I mean, this is expressing itself in terms of a powerful universal love, or like a cosmic consciousness kind of signature. So let me explain why. First, let me start with the energies of Aquarius, where the moon is here in very late Aquarius on the Aquarius-Pisces cusp. Aquarius is really strange to everyone else, and Pisces is really mysterious to everyone else. Let's just leave those ideas there for now. So life in the modern world is really impossibly complex, and it's so complex that we develop patterns, habits, conditioning. We develop this sort of autopilot mechanism pretty much throughout the whole rest of the zodiac. I mean, Aries through Capricorn is about developing the patterns and habits and conditions of ourselves. But in Aquarius and in Pisces, something else happens. It's very important to understand this. This is the sort of weird kids' corner. So we have to approach this territory knowingly if we want to get the most out of it. In Aquarius, what happens is we decondition. Yeah, we decondition. We explore the nature and the architecture of our existing conditioning in order to free ourselves from it. And so Aquarius buzzword is liberation. This is where we say, and it follows on that Capricorn response. In Capricorn, we hit the apex of like conditioning. So much conditioning, so much habit, so much conformity, everything autopilot. And coming out of that into Aquarius, the urge to decondition arises. So by late Aquarius, this is a very strong energy, a very full energy of liberation. Aquarius is buzzword. So in Pisces, right, following on this powerful deconditioning, we enter into this bizarre and really nebulous territory of the spiritual mystery. okay? And the field of being beyond boundaries, right? The oneness at the heart of all our experience, as if we were drops in an oceanic field of consciousness, a cosmic web, if you will. Now, I could focus on the textbook aspects of Aquarius and Pisces, and I could focus on how that relates to Leo, but I left a link in the description below to the Cosmic Wizard podcast with Rio Larmand and yours truly on the Leo Aquarius axis. So watch that for the full goodies. In this bit of analysis, what I really want to focus on and emphasize is this powerful late Aquarius and early Pisces sort of cusp with the Moon and Neptune in conjunction, and this Uranus sextiling closely and trining closely in 1 degree 2 minutes the Sun and Moon. This is a really dynamic pattern, and it really emphasizes the development of that consciousness, right? Sun and Moon collectively, this is consciousness. This is the core sense of self and how it's integrating. I mean, this is Moon, what it is, and Sun, what it does. So what it's doing is changing. That's a Uranus signature, and that's an Aquarius signature. But it's the consciousness that everyone, right, this particular consciousness on the Aquarius-Pisces cusp is very beautiful, very elevated, very mature and advanced consciousness. If we look at it from the point of view of the wisdom of Sun and mature late Leo. And it's the consciousness, it's the awareness that everyone in all tiers of societies everywhere, right? That's late Aquarius societies. From Aboriginal people who use primitive technology to those in all tiers of the postmodern early space age world that we live in. Everybody broadly is connected, right? And is in fact one. That's Pisces. Very special medicine, the oneness. And in the end of Aquarius, we can realize that all of humanity is really just one species. And at the beginning of Pisces, we can realize that all of humanity and all of life are really one consciousness, right? Beyond the physical, one species so there's this amazing opportunity here to tap into, to develop your connection to humanity in such a deep way, like an absolutely deep way. This is really very, very beautiful, almost like a natural encouragement of this bodhisattva kind of way of thinking, seeing the divine in everyone, seeing the light in everyone. That's what I see very, very nicely in this full moon formation here. And it doesn't really stop there. There are some other important things going on. We have Mercury stationed retrograde, so Mercury also still opposite to Chiron and Jupiter, and Mercury is actually on the star Vindamayatrix, which is a very, very interesting star in Virgo. So this is really around Mercury, which is having to do with our thinking, communication, logic, listening. This is a potential crisis signature. Okay, and it's not that your life might fall apart. Don't worry, but this is the potential crisis signature of overthinking, right? Overanalyzing to the point of breakdown. That's what Mercury does when it's in these positions. So, when the energies of this full moon are very high, right? On the one hand, I'm saying, oh, here's this great bodhisattva energy, this very high and enlightened consciousness which sees the oneness and the connectedness and the web of life interweaving through all things. It's very romantic in a way. It's very idealistic almost, because not everybody is going to be able to tap into these energies. Just flat out. So that's just how it works. There's nothing wrong with you if you can't either. Some of us are going to be tapping into this mental anxiety kind of energies. And to some extent, most of us will be feeling both these effects. But if your mind is too fast and it won't stop during this full moon, this is what astrology has to offer us, because when we have an overabundance here of the Virgo, all right, we know that what we need is what's across the sky, Pisces. So we need to activate this calm, dreamy, meditative sort of Piscean energies. And if you don't know what kind of Piscean things you like to do, then you need to research Pisces and build your star knowledge and discover what kind of Pisces things you like. Some people like to paint. Some people like to do yoga and meditate. Some people like martinis, and some people definitely don't. So Pisces is going to take some exploration, and way more than that. Those aren't designed to teach or illustrate anything. Those are just placeholders, an invitation to discover for yourself the depth, the profound depth of Pisces. Point is, if we're anxious, if we're thinking too fast, again, this could be a pattern this month. You've heard me talk about it a couple of times. It's just due to this Mercury position, the relation to Mars, the relation to Jupiter. Now we're stationed retrograde for the full moon. Really easy to just feel a little out of control, to be honest. And it'll pass. It'll pass. And know that it'll pass relatively soon, because Mercury moves very quickly. And know that you can lean into Pisces activities and attitudes in order to bring balance to that overactivated mind if you're experiencing it. And part of that Pisces that we can lean into is the spiritual truth of this late Aquarius moon on the Pisces cusp, conjoined to Neptune, the ruler of Pisces, a very deep, a very profound, a very boundaryless, and just transcendental, very transcendental signature. So do pay attention to these things if your mind has the ability to be open to some of the transcendental flows of compassion and love and connection to life, to humanity, to the planet. This is really a time to just be in that. Just feel that. Just like a muscle, you work it out, it gets stronger. You want to just be in that and know that you're developing a connection to that. Every time you rest in that and hold a space for that attitude, and just even entertain the idea that there's something connecting and flowing through all living beings, right? There's just sort of two kinds of people in the world. There's people who are like, yeah, Yoda, sure. And there's people who are going to get interested in that because, I don't know, it sounds interesting. And they're going to discover that, wow, that's actually real. So, all these doors are open to us. And the one that will grow in our lives is the one we walk through. So if I was setting intentions at the new moon, right, knowing what I know now here, having looked at the full moon chart, what I would want to use this cycle to do would be develop my ability to see the sacred in everyone. Because, man, that's the eyes I want to see the world through. Okay. And that's the world I want to live in, is the world that's seen through those eyes. right? Same world, different world. So, just want to put that out there, sort of seed that idea. In regard to the Leo Aquarius axis generally, right? And the topics we've discussed today, like Leo's leadership and Aquarius is humanitarian and social qualities, et cetera, et cetera. All of that will be greatly empowered to develop as well. So pay attention to that. Think about that and watch Cosmic Wizard's Leo Aquarius Axis podcast for a veritable treasure trove of supplementary information that you're missing out on, and it's ridiculous because it would be better if you watched it. And now, the waning quarter moon, friends. And the intention of the waning quarter moon is of reflection, it's of enjoyment, it's following on the high point of the cycle, and we're winding it down, right? We're making way for that next new moon. So we're going to want to make space. We're going to want to look back. We're going to want to assess what worked and what didn't on the way up. And we're going to want to enjoy what we have, share with our friends, store some for later, and really start thinking about that next lunation. So, when we examine the last quarter moon, this isn't an overly dynamic point in the cycle like the new moon or the full moon, but it is an important point, and we see the sun opposite to Neptune. And by degrees, that's less than 1 degree. And we see the moon square to Neptune. And this could be a really sensitive time with sun and moon both relating to Neptune. It could be an overly emotional time. It could be a time to pay attention to intuition and spiritual guidance. It could be a time to pay attention to dreams or signs or just weird impressions. Or, when I think about Neptune, I always think about the language that life speaks to us in, which is the language of experience. It could be anything, like just thinking something and seeing a leaf fall, but it's the way you see it. It lets you know that it's a sign, an omen, agreeing with that thought. That's the Neptunian, it's weird, it's dreamy, it doesn't make sense. Like dreams work like that, right? Like in a dream, if you were thinking a leaf could tell you, yeah, that's it. And you'd be like, oh, well, a leaf told me, it must be true. That's perfectly sensible dream logic. But in the waking world, what if things worked exactly the same way all the time, but we miss that usually? This can be a time to get in touch with some of that magic and some of the language that, the experiential language that reality speaks to us. Sun is trying to Pluto, and Pluto is square to Eris, and we're now, that Pluto-Eris square is at its closest orb of approach at 1 degree and 28 minutes. It's not going to get closer, so for this last quarter moon, some of the things that we might be reflecting on may have to do with the situation from late 2019 to the present day. Much is discussed in the prior segments, so just know that this could be connected to processing the recent past and all of the Eris-Pluto effects, which, just to go over some of that again, dictators and autocrats, COVID-19, the radicalization of the extremes in our societies, politically, the radicalization and extremism, and even social polarization, with just different sides on different issues really digging in and just digging their heels in and really, polarizing the very fabric of society. And this is, in essence, what Pluto Aries did for us. It's what it represents. And this trine to the sun means this could be a little close to our conscious mind right now. Some of the things that we're integrating at this time are still likely to be connected to processing the past. So big theme this month. This connection to the past and these difficult cycles, these difficult squares that are winding down. Let's just take a look at the next new moon. We'll be winding down from September 17th. We'll be winding down towards that next new moon on September 25th. And it's a busy moon in Virgo. It could be a real challenge here to chill out, and that might be following on. But at this point, the 25th of September, that might be really familiar, following on a couple weeks of just having a hard time chilling out. What with Jupiter opposite to this pile up in Virgo, we could have an excess of anxiety. And it could be a real invitation to push through and to find that Pisces, to find that chill and that Pacific, forgiving, mellow energy. So we'll examine that next month. And for now, this whole cycle is really offering us an opportunity to develop ourselves and our power in a newly emerging world, and to discover how we can play and how we can create, how we can balance this axis of individuality with the alchemy of Leo and Aquarius. Link in the description to that Leo Aquarius podcast that I mentioned 5 times. Sweet little deep dive with 5 more to come. Link in the corner of the screen there to my website. Learn about my work with evolutionary astrology and true sidereal. I do interpret natal charts. I do transits, other kinds of sessions. There's more info there at oneskyastrology.com. Please find us on Facebook, everybody's favorite, and we're on a group called Sidereal Revolution, where constellational astrologers congregate, and with a healthy representation of sidereal forms of astrology and a focus on true sidereal. Please do keep paying attention to the actual skies. Thank you very much. And the living world around you. It's so big, friends, and so beautiful. And please do stay in alignment. That's all for this month. Love you all. See you next time. Thank you. Ciao.